Yeah. That's the idea though, is it table works. And you don't have to use the HTML table, right? You can use the CSS table, which lets you just kind of have the dividus and everything just as a div. Because if not, I don't know how many of you guys were around when tables were a thing, but a table would look like this. You would have a table like just like this, then you have something called a T head. And then inside the T head, you'd have to specify there's a row. And then for each column, you would do a TD. Why is it D for column? I don't know. I really don't know. Don't ask me. And then for the body, this is the semantically correct way to do this. That would be one of your rows. One of the main reasons why this is kind of a pain in the butt is you have to separate these things out a little bit. It lets you style them. You style them the same way you can style this, but it'll break pretty hard if you mess around with it too much. Now, there was a age when this is how you actually made websites. So if we go progressively backwards, right? Before Grid, Flex helped you do this kind of stuff. Before Flex, Float helped you do this kind of stuff. Before Float, tables were the way to lay things out. So if you needed one thing here and another thing here, you didn't have inline block, you didn't have all these fancy fangled things, you would set up a table. And if you just literally wanted to do 2-column layout, it would look like this. And then you would start being like thing on the left and then thing on the right, like that. And you would go in and style the bejesus out of this thing to make it work. And what gets even crazier is tableception, when you're like, oh, I need the thing on the right, I want that to be just a solid block like this. The thing on the left, I need to lay that out too. So you tableception the whole thing. And then inside of this table, more tables inevitably start to emerge to define even more layout rules. And before you know it, this is a giant heaping mess. So this is the thing. When you hear people talk about why they hate tables, it's because this was the only way to do stuff for a long time. And you'd get these big heaping messes all the way through. There are some places where you still use tables, like for tabular data, but for layout, I think the only place you'll still use a table is in an email. For whatever reason, most email clients don't take structured HTML, and you have to put the tables in, and everybody's just okay with it. It's such a pain in the butt, man. So I was a freelancer for a while. I had a little tiny agency with my friends when I was younger, and we did a lot of like video work and photography and websites. But this was early web, man. I was 17 years old when we started that company, so that'd be 19 years ago. So that's when I first really had like formal business training as a web guy. And back then it was even wilder. You want to do something cool on a website, you do it in Flash. You make a big giant movie out of the website and people can click on the movie. And as time progressed, I decided time to go to college for visual design. During college, I didn't work very much, if at all, until maybe my third year in college. And I just got to a point where I just wanted to make money. Like I had support of my father helped me through college a little bit. And he said, I'm not helping you out anymore. I was like, dang it. Okay. And so I had to get a job, and whatever would come up. And for me, I got really lucky because I only stuck in this job in this type of role for like 6 months. And then what I did was I tried to put myself out there and say like, okay, I don't want to do freelance work. That was a check. No more freelance. I wanted to get some real experience at a big agency. I also wanted to get experience with big clients and all this kind of stuff. I didn't want to do the management aspect of freelance. So I started talking to friends of mine and it's like, who can hire me? I just need a foot in the door. Like, just give me something. And what I got was HTML emails. I got convert whatever the designer does, just whatever the designer figures out, make it an HTML email. Just make it work. And that was hell. That was the worst. They'd give you ridiculous things you needed to do. Like, I remember one HTML email where the guy had like a boat. I can draw it. It was crazy. It was for like an anchor company. Anchor company. Seriously, that was the company. It was just that we make anchors. and it was being managed by this huge agency, right? This massive agency was handling them. So the top of the email looked like a boat, like a big oil tanker. This is what an oil tanker. This is actually kind of how they look, right? It was this gorgeous illustrated oil tanker. It had the name of the company sort of on this. So like the name of the company was here, all illustrated. This is where the headline goes, and that's variable text. That's all got to be done in HTML. And then there was something over here, which was a button they could click to who knows what. And then there was the email body, which sort of like they kept doing like a side rail down the whole email like that. And then they had a body here. The side rail just had like thing after thing after, it's like news items, right? And then here was like a message that they would write out to somebody. Okay. Then there was some footer stuff here, but then down here, there was the ocean floor. And up here was the top of the ocean, right? And the whole way down, there was little fish and like a little guy swimming. There was, like a whale at some point just hanging out down here. So, this is what whale... I'm not doing too bad with the drawing today. Look at this. Little whale down here. Little submarine. Holy, like... This is the worst. This is the worst. And, of course, this was hard enough to do, right? And then off the front of this stupid thing is this stupid anchor that just kind of like moves through the background of the page. And that ends up down here like this, kind of stuck to something. This was like a month of my life figuring this out. And that was just the worst. It was just absolutely like, why? And you know what the craziest thing is? You know what the craziest thing about this was? I smashed my head just trying to get this working, right? And mind you, this is a hard thing to get started anyways. And you get it working perfectly, right? So your steps are like, okay, I got it working, thank God. And then you have to do what's called an acid test. And I don't know if this is a smart thing to Google. Yeah, email and acid, this is what we used to use. They've been around forever. And what you do is you get your thing working in your local browser. Your only real way to test this stuff is like to send it to yourself. And then you take email and acid here. I don't think that they really push this too much anymore. But they would take that HTML that you made, and then they would email it to different endpoints. So it's like the email gets taken by email and acid, and they just send it off to Microsoft Outlook. They send it off to Yahoo, to wherever. And Outlook, for whatever it's worth, was the worst thing ever because it had its own HTML engine. Okay. One of the versions was legit. It was like IE 5 or 6 or something like that. They jammed inside of Outlook. The next version after that used the same HTML engine and CSS engine that like Microsoft Word used. So it just invented a bunch of rules, like padding rules and all this crap and shunting rules. So the way to get this thing to really work is every element on here, every single element had to shim in. So like if you had blank space here, you had to like shim an image everywhere there was blank space and everywhere. So you just keep creating these shims. There could be no empty space in this whole thing. That's the gist of it. You had to fill every pixel with something. Literally, like you had to have a table column filling that thing. So you do your test, email and acid comes back. It looks great in 20 out of the 30 things or whatever. You fix the next 10 things, it breaks the first 20. So, that's a big part of spending a month on an HTML email. But once you get it all working, okay, so I get this all working. And my manager was like over the moon, so excited. Like, because my manager knew exactly what I was going through. They were like, I know it's crazy, but that's what the art guys want. So let's get it over to them. Send it over. All good. Just perfect. Works perfect. They never used it. They went with the simple, like basically there was just a picture up at the top of their name like this. Column 1, column 2, footer. And that's what they ended up going with. I almost just said that's enough. like it just embedded in my head. I don't want to make money as a developer. I want to make money as a designer developer, right? Because it was just the worst month of my life. I got paid pretty well to do it, but HTML emails, absolute nightmare. Glad I never have to do any one of those ever again.